Welcome to the Pushing Hajun podcast. This is your host Ash. Some people run fast, some people run far, and then there are who stay composed when things get truly uncomfortable. Today's guest lives there. From breaking the 24 hours barrier at one of the hardest 100-mile races in the world to standing podiums at hundreds, 200s, and mountain stage races, this isn't a story about talent. It's about patience, about learning when to push and when to hold, about staying curious long after most people think they have figured it out. What struck me most in this conversation wasn't the results, it was the honesty. The way she talks about fear, setback, shame, recovery, and the quiet mental fatigue that comes after doing something extreme. Not pretending, not the hero talk, just real reflection from someone who has been in the dark mile more than most of us ever will. We talk about what it actually takes to endure for 24 hours and beyond, how to tell the difference between pain and discomfort, why flat races can be as brutal as mountains, why recovery isn't just about legs, but about the part you can't see, and why being brave sometimes means starting when you're not sure how it ends. This isn't about chasing the podiums, it's about chasing the edge of your own potential and being willing to sit down with the discomfort along the way. In that note, please let me introduce your guest today. Here is Alicia. Hey, Alicia. Thank you for your time and welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Before we begin, can you please give a quick introduction? Who is Alicia?
Oh, that is a great question. So, I am a cat mom, a wife, ultra marathon runner. I call myself an endurance adventurer with an ultra running problem because I really love mountain sports as well. I also coach, podcast, and travel a lot. So, yeah, just kind of bopping all over around the world, getting to live out this running dream.
Running is a dream actually because if you do races, then you can travel everywhere. So it's like a nicer lifestyle.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I think about some of the places I've been able to I mean, it's so cool of where races are, where it's like Madeira is this beautiful place. I'm actually, I guess, saying this now, going to go to Cape Town in November, and there's just so many parts of the world that we get to see through this running journey on our own 2 feet and just where they take us. So yeah, it's incredible.
And where this journey began for you? And did you were you running before you started doing ultra running?
Yeah, so I grew up in a very active family in Vermont. So actually the Long Trail and the Appalachian Trail are very much I grew up running those, so was very used to I love technical trail. They're certainly very technical. So I grew up kind of a cross country skier and lacrosse player, and then with cross country skiing in particular, there's a lot of training hours, a lot of training volume. So would go out and be on a trail run hike for 4 to 5 hours, and I just really loved getting to spend time out there eating snacks, and decided that I was probably going to do triathlon or ultras because I'd read Ultra Marathon Man when I was 10 years old, and I was like, I'm going to do that someday. And unfortunately, triathlon was a little bit outside of my budget as a young teacher straight out of college. So I decided to pursue ultras, and that was over 10 years ago at this point. So it's been quite a journey.
Yes, and now you have been doing these incredible races. When you look back, which was that one race that defined you and made you the athlete you are today?
I would say it's probably been, what's funny is I've thought a lot about how, you'll see an athlete and they have like that breakout race or they have that breakout season. And I feel like I have been the slow burn a lot more throughout those 10 years where, yes, I've certainly had seasons that have been like, wow, that I like put some stuff together that season, like had some results, but I feel like it's more just been this consistent ups and downs, but like hopefully we're still moving in the positive direction. I mean, positive, whatever that means. But I think there's definitely a few races I think that have helped to change the trajectory a little bit. I think Moab 240 was very important. Canyons 100, which was a world major. Hurt 100 has certainly played a strong. I mean, Hurt 100 has just been a race that's certainly captured my heart for a long time. And then more recently, Lavareda was a great race. Dragon's Back, and then UTMB last year, I think coming just outside of the top 10, have all kind of shaped where I'm at. And I hope to continue to build off of those for the future. But yeah, I think it's all been this just giant work in progress that every season I kind of sit down and go, wow, well, I'm a beginner again. Like, let's get going. And I forget I've been in the sport for 10 years. It's like, that's a decent amount of time. But I just feel like I'm always learning. There's so much to learn. And that is what keeps me so excited.
I think it is just like studying; it never ends because there is it is a new way of doing things, and everything is evolving in data science these days. And it's the evolution of trail running and running has been so awesome in the last 10 years. When we started running, like we were not so much like we just used watch, but we didn't pay too much attention. Now there is this load training, whatever effort, like there's so much different ways of training things. And when you look back at your career, right, in the last 10 years, I'm sure you were just running at one point just for fun because you wanted to do things, but then those things changed for you. And then now you're competing in the front of the pack. So when did that change happen, and how did it happen, the progression of it?
Yeah, I think I got lucky in many ways that in much smaller races, I was able to see that it wasn't out of the realm of possibility for me to be kind of like pushing the front a bit. Um, like there are quite a few races, especially at the beginning. Like I did have some pretty early success, again, whatever that means, of being like, I think it gave me the taste of, oh, yes, like maybe this is possible. And to be honest, in 2015, there were so few professional runners. I mean, it was like, hey, free shoes is kind of one of the, and maybe some travel stipend. And I was also so young that I don't even think I really realized for maybe the first 4 year, 3 to 4 years that was even viable. And then I think there was a turning point where I guess there was always part of me from kind of realizing like maybe I could do this at a bigger level, whatever that means, that thought it was possible. But I've always considered myself an underdog too. So it was like, well, I think this might be possible, but also like, I don't know, we'll see. But I would say probably in 2021 was where things started to come together. I'd also done the marathon streak of running a lot during COVID, and that kind of gained some more attention, even though it didn't necessarily help with like ultra running sponsorship. It did help with visibility from news sources, etc. And then I think it also just laid a really big aerobic base. And so at that point, it's like, okay, I'm going to take this into the 21 season and kind of just started slowly building and gaining attention and having a lot of people help me along the way to get where I am. But I would say it was probably the 21, 22 where it truly became, oh, okay, I can get a few sponsorships and pursue this at a higher level. Because to be honest, I always think of this as kind of a chicken and the egg thing with this sport where what you work really hard and you have so many things to overcome where it's like, can I get over to Europe? Even if it's just standing further behind on the start line, kind of all the extra support you get as elite, getting a racing bib, getting into races. And so the the more that you are able to kind of like up your results, the more advantages you get, and then the more advantages you get, the faster you get. But it's really hard to get to the point where you start seeing those come to fruition. So I for all the people who are kind of like on that edge pushing towards that, like keep going. It's tough, but it does I feel like you just start to have doors open that make things easier and easier to keep pursuing it at that higher level, and those doors started opening for me kind of in 21, 22.
Definitely, I think that is one of the things I was talking to while I was editing the episode of KTS, but then she said, say yes to the opportunities, and you don't know what might lead up to whatever thing. Then so always be open and do things that comes your way. And in that note, right? So when did you realize that you had endurance to do these things? Or I'm sure when you were like when you started running and then you were like running 240 miles, like that is impossible. That's insane. That for me it is insane, right? Running 240
It
is
is too.
insane. So
I don't I like yeah, I look back at it like, "Oh my gosh, I don't remember like half of that." So I only ran like
when did
120
you
because that's what I remember. No, I'm kidding.
when did you realize that you are built to endure these tougher distances?
Such a great question because, actually, I think there was a little bit of a hint my first 50K ever. I did a 50K in a couple of hours from my hometown, and I was actually leaving like 2 days later to move to Hawaii to start kind of like my quote unquote adult life. And I was running with someone, and he, like, basically everyone else started getting tired and I started having more fun. And I was like, wait, this is great. I love this. And so I feel as though I'm not the fastest person standing on the start line of just like, I don't have a 2:30 marathon or anything like that. But I have learned that my durability is quite strong, and I think kind of the grittiness of just like I always say that I need a lot of time to do my job. That's why I love 100 milers so much, where I'm like, "Oh yeah, I just need to go to work for like 20-ish hours and it'll come out the other side." But I think I've been able mentally and physically to stay in the game for a long time, and the I just seem to have more of an ability on the back end to keep that endurance up, which started to become clear to me as I progressed in my career because I don't have as much of that just like raw foot speed. So it's like, well, I got to figure out how to keep strong in the back half. And I think that's what helps me in racing.
We were talking about earlier, and then you did 240, right? Moab, that's insane. And to a lot of us who are doing running marathon or ultra runners, that it's just like that sounds way, way bigger. So what draws you to these extreme races? And you even went to jungles in Hawaii, Italy, and you've been all over doing these extreme races. Why? Why? What are the reasons?
Yeah, that again is a great question. So part of it is that my husband's in the military, so we are moved every 2 to 3 years. So that is I moved to Hawaii for a teaching job and I met him there, and then we moved to Italy, Florida, California. So naturally kind of my life is to move every 2 to 3 years, so I think that definitely encourages that. But I think I think part of it starts with that I was raised on what's considered some of the most technical terrain, at least in the US, of the East Coast, Long Trail, Appalachian Trail, as I was saying. And so I think I've just always been drawn to really technical, challenging terrain. And so I've sought that out in other areas. But yeah, it's funny you say that because when we were living over in Italy, I Googled what are the hardest races in the world because that's what I thought I wanted to do, and very quickly came up Dragon's Back, Tour de Jean. I think Hurt might have been on there as well. And so I took on Dragon's Back. It took me 2 times to finish Dragon's Back, and I actually have not finished Tour de Jean. I am at 2 tries, so hopefully number 3 at some point
Oh, yes.
will be the one. Yeah, it's a tough. It scares the crap out of me, and I have attempted it twice. So I think, yeah, I really love being able to use not only the skill set of running, but just the skill set of being in particularly mountainous terrains, or honestly, kind of like the hot, jungly terrains, kind of two extremes, but I love those extremes. And, how do you manage yourself to perform at your best when maybe the conditions aren't just perfect? And I think that goes back again to that, like, I might not win off of just a really fast foot race, but if you throw some variables in there that make it more challenging, I will that will help. I think help me.
It was funny you said that you look for the toughest races when you were in Italy, and Hard 100 is one of those, right? So, and then you had a course record on it. For someone under 24 hours, how demanding was that for you mentally, physically? Because, like you said, you were searching for the toughest races, and that was probably one of them.
Yeah, well, I moved to Hawaii right out of college for a teaching job, and so Hurt is the 100 miler on Hawaii. That's the home race, and so I had seen it come up when I was moving there, and I was like, "This race looks insane. I don't know if I can ever do that," because I'd only been in the sport for like a year. And my mom was just like, "Please don't do that. Why are you thinking about it's like one of the hardest ones in the world." And funny enough, Hurt was my first 100 miler, and I raced it about a year and a half into starting ultras. And that's, coming off of a pretty long life of doing endurance sports. But it was my first run, and so many things went wrong. I thought I was gonna die, all the parts of running your first 100. And I finished and I put it in my back pocket of like, one day I want to go back and do Hurt again. And I didn't go back actually until 2023. And I ran it then and came in, I think it was 36 minutes over 20. It was like 24:36 or something like that. I just went, oh my gosh, okay, I can see X, Y, and Z that I can fix to do this again. And I wanted a woman to break 24 hours. That was really important to me. I say like Hurt's one of my soul races. And I just wanted to see a woman do that because I thought it was possible. And 2 years later, wow, that was this year. I keep forgetting Hurt happened this year. It feels a long time ago. I'd done UTMB. I actually got into Hurt. It's like the week or 2 weeks right before UTMB, and I said to my coach in a shakeout run before UTMB, I really want to break 24 hours at Hurt. And he's like, "Why are you talking about Hurt right now? Like, let's talk about UTMB." But I just, it was kind of 9 years or almost 10 years of being an ultra runner that kind of all of those skills added up to then being able to break that record. Uh, it was hard. I mean, there was definitely things that I can still improve upon. I think it's nearly impossible to run a perfect race. But I also really wanted to know, what does it feel like to push and stay that focused for, a 24-ish hour race. And I will say that the amount of focus, I mean, I was on from the second the race started until I finished. And that was really hard. I was so tired after that, just from the mental push of being that focused for that period of time. And to be honest, I'd never really experienced that mental fatigue. It was totally worth it. And I want to figure out how to bring that into other races even more. But it was definitely challenging.
How was the recovery mentally, physically? Because physically you can come over, but mentally it's exhausting, and you have UTMB coming up next.
Yeah, so well, I definitely jumped the gun on coming back. I thought, "Oh, I'll hop into Desert Rats 100K in April. I It's gonna be something completely different. Desert Rats is very runnable, it's literally desert jungle to desert, and I just was not ready and ended up dropping at 50K of Desert Rats. And I think, there was some things that were going on. I think I was fighting something like a cold or a stomach issue. But I think also mentally, I just needed a bigger break from how difficult that push was at hurt. And so I think just being really cognizant, and I encourage just the of my athletes, like physically you can heal pretty quickly, but I always say it's the inside parts that you need to really focus on, like your hormone levels, how you're just feeling, how's your brain recovering, and all of those pieces are way more challenging to because you can't see them, but those are what is the difference between, I think, a long career and a career that might be cut short because of injuries that manifest in other ways.
While you are in this topic, right? So let's say you did Moab 240, and when you do and the dragon's back, how was the recovery in between? Did you have to take a lot of time off? Because when I was talking to the folks who did Kokorona, they had so much experiences on the some legs were swollen and they couldn't use walk the like crutches and stuff like that. Like PTSD of running for a week or 2 weeks, or they had to wake up at night and like, how much I have to run and stuff like that. So how was your feeling too?
Oh my gosh, yes, totally. So I yeah, that's the weirdest thing about the longer distances is you'll wake up for a week or so after being like, "I have to run. Like, I gotta go." And then so definitely the waking up kind of that like I still have to run mode after Moab. And also I've done a 350-mile FKT, actually the Pinhoti Trail down in Alabama and Georgia. That yeah, that was bad. The recovery, I think, with 200s is really hard because I think for most of us, I mean, we're not going to feel good, but being awake for 24 to even 30 hours is pretty feasible. But the sleep deprivation side of 200s, I think, takes a really long time to recover from, like weeks, like week to 2 weeks before you feel good. And I just think that that added element of multiple nights of sleep deprivation, again, really messes up the hormones and the internal pieces. So, I've heard from a number of people with 200, so they're like, "Yeah, I just was kind of in this mental fog for a few weeks." And then your feet can get so messed up, the swelling, like it can be pretty bad. I think again that the physical side can often heal within a couple of weeks, but the yeah, gosh, the internal pieces I think take quite a long time. And also one of the things I hear so often with 200, which I totally agree, is that it's hard to get your speed back after 200 because you're just used to building that durability that hey, I can go all day all night. And so you're just not moving that fast. And so to try to click back into some type of speed can take, I mean, sometimes a year or so to really be like, okay, I'm down fast again, whatever that means for us.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree to that. I mean, I didn't do 240, but I was training for my first ultra, and then all I was focused on was time on feet, time on feet. So that means this was the first time in my training block I didn't look at my watch, like how fast I was running. So everything was slow, slow walk, and then I was running Berlin Marathon or training for Berlin Marathon, and I cannot run faster. Even leading to it, it was like try to run fast, and it's like, oh wow, I'm going. I used to be able to run 450, 432, 5 pretty easily, and it was like, nope. I was barely running at 60 and my heart was pumping so fast and I was like, but it's hard like how our body leads and I cannot imagine running 240 and then God knows how long that will take to even how do you even run after that, after you run for 3 4 days of continuous running and then I don't think I even want to see running for a while. It's just like I'm done with it.
What's crazy is that I have a good friend. Well, actually, you've interviewed Killian Korth,
Oh, yes, yeah,
I think.
yeah.
Yeah. Killian, when we've talked, and then I have another friend who's done a couple 200s this year, and they're like, I am so excited for off season. I do not want to run for 2 months. And they're doing, of course, 2 to 3 200 milers. I'm like, I'm psyched. After 100, I'm like, a week or so, and then I'm pretty ready to go. But yeah, I think after Moab, and I mean, I haven't done a 200 miler since Moab, which was in 2022. Um, I think it was definitely, I would say 3 weeks to a month before I was pretty like, I want to run again. But I think that part of my excitement about running is that whenever I push focus onto, say, a really big mountain race like a Uray or whatever, where it's just hiking mostly, or like you're really focusing on the climbing and descending, you are compromising the speed work. And so I just get really excited after, say, I've focused on one aspect more because that's what the race demands, to go to the other part. So for example, UTMB, there is a lot of running in UTMB. I'd say shocking amount of running, but we're kind of refocusing on more speed work right now. And it's so exciting to be like, yeah, I'm going to run really hard for 3 minutes and then it's going to be over for that interval. And I get a little break and to do it again versus bigger mountain pushes where like I'm going to run steady state for an hour or I'm going to do a 6 hour, 7 hour long run. And so I think that just the amount of things that you can always be working on in your running keeps me excited for different seasons of what we are training.
Yeah, I mean it is so hard and especially if you have been running like you who I was talking to Killian and he said like I'm gonna definitely take something off after the Moha because he's trying to break the triple crown record. So I think
Yeah.
which he will based on how he's running right now
I
and
think he will. My
yeah,
money's on him. Yeah.
yeah, it was like I think his podcast came last week
Oh,
and
cool.
it was so fascinating to see him talk and it's just like the mindset and he had so many DNFs and the 200 miler too and Cocodona and stuff like that and it's like when we have a DNF and stuff like that we're so pretty hard on ourselves, right? Because oh, I couldn't do it. I had DNF at Berlin and I'm just killing myself because I was not able to finish what I wanted to do. But actually it is a good training block for the rest of our career because it might be a something sort of a stepping block for wherever you want to go. And in that note, how do you handle setbacks or DNFs?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, I just had kind of a big setback at UTMB. That was not what I was expecting to do or felt that I was capable of doing. And I think there's initially that moment of feeling really down and ashamed. I think one of the things that we don't talk about that much is the shame around it. It's wild and it feels terrible, and I wish we didn't feel like that, but I do think that's a big part of it, especially when you've kind of put your goals out there of like, I believe I'm capable of this, and then it doesn't happen. So I do think it's really important for me at least to take a couple of days to feel that and be like, that's okay. It meant a lot to you. You don't have to just put a bow on it and say, it's okay. Everything's fine. So I think that allowing myself that period and then I've been very lucky to have a very strong coaching team and we start figuring out how to fix things and like, okay, what were some big things that we need to change? And actually, coming out of UTMB, there were huge nutritional changes that I needed to make because of I have ulcerative colitis, which is like Crohn's disease, an autoimmune disease, and I hadn't made any of those changes. And I probably would never have reached what I'm capable of in the sport had UTMB not kind of slapped me in the face of like, hey, you can't keep doing this. You're never going to be where you want to be if you don't make some significant changes in your daily nutrition. And so I think that's the part that maybe keeps us coming back is recognizing where you can improve. And to me, I think that has really helped me shift focus of yes, I'm disappointed. Yes, I wish it had gone better, but also like, oh my gosh, you've been given this massive gift to make things better and you have people who are excited and willing to work with you to do that. And so it I think often with DNFs or failures, of course it's not what we want, but it's what we probably need to move forward.
I can totally relate to this because it's been 2 weeks, and I I know it was not in me because I was sickly today, and I was not sure if I wanted to do the marathon, and I decided on the day that I feel good enough to do it. With I shouldn't have started if I look at it now, but then the same I got, and then everybody was carrying the medal, and it was just like a putting a salt in the wound, and then I felt like the same way, and I felt like a fraud that I couldn't even finish what I said I would do it, and it was just awful thing. And we are so mean to ourselves when we set out this goal, like you said, and then we go and then we cannot perform. And it was embarrassing when I was like, I had to drop out at 24. It was just like, God, that feels so bad. And everybody was looking at me at the train when I was looking at it. It was just, God, this is so bad. It didn't feel so good. It's awful feeling.
Yeah, it is awful feeling, and I'm sorry you went through that. It sucks. I mean, I DNF'd Madeira last year, and I was just walking around this beautiful island just in this haze of self-hatred. I was like, I don't care about these beautiful views. This sucks. I'm so bad. I was like, you are so like come on. You're like people come here. This is a dream place to be and you're just so ashamed of yourself. You can't even like lift that veil at all to see what's around you. So I feel that. I wish, I actually really applaud I think David Roach has been very open about talking about his shame around Western states and kind of how he's navigated that. And I think that that's been a really good conversation to put out there and just be like, it's okay. This is part of what happens. And but the thing is, like, the people who matter are still going to love you. They're still going to support you. And you're going to use this for the future.
And in that note, right? So you DNF because something went wrong, or you have to give up something, or something drastically happened. So how do you differ discomfort from actual pain that is happening?
Yeah, I think that's super interesting because I think that that's a lot of learning. That's a lot of the evolution of being an athlete is being able to differentiate the two, where it's like, is this pain or is this just discomfort? And I think that it's navigating as you do get later in races to be able to reason with yourself of what is pain and what is discomfort, because discomfort seems to become pain when we are later on in races, because I think our brain is trying to self-preserve and it goes, oh, okay, your foot hurts, like that's pain, you're done. Whereas it's probably fine and it's probably just discomfort. But I do think that it is learning. I mean, I think that's part of the years of experience is being able to differentiate the two. And of course, you shouldn't push on, if things are true pain. But I also think that's where having people around you who know you well, who are able to kind of have that conversation with you too, is super helpful. But yeah, I think that's part of the lessons that we learn.
When you are going into the race, right? So there are so many aspects of it, like fueling, the way your legs are feeling, sometimes the weather and everything. Sometimes everything sucks and everything is bad, and we just hate everything. And when you are in that mindset, how do you get out of it?
Yeah, well, I try to. I think it's kind of similar to control what you can control. And I always kind of make lists where I'm like, okay, these are factors I have no control over. I can't change the weather. I don't have that power yet. I don't know. I don't know what could happen, but this is onto the list of uncontrollables. I can't control my competition, whether they're feeling great, whether they're injured, whether they're tired, etc. And so I try to come back to, and this has actually really helped me in FKTs, especially if you're doing it unsupported or self supported, where you don't have it out. It's like you have what you have. And I think continuing to just put things into the different lists or boxes helps me to navigate what I'm able to do. And I feel like sometimes offloading, I can't control this. It just clears up brain space so that you can actually focus more on what you can control. So for example, when I was doing the Pinhoti Trail, I was the first time I ever attempted it, I did it self-supported, and I was hiking it in the night, and I started having a panic attack of, am I going to get, attacked by something, or what are all these noises? Oh my gosh, I'm so scared. And I just went, okay, what can you control? What can you not control? It's like, well, I can't control if an animal attacks me right now. So I'm going to, in one ear, listen to an audiobook so that I'm not obsessing over all of these noises. I can still hear, like safety, of course, but, and that's like, what can control? Well, am I eating, drinking, moving forward? And so I think that just putting things into categories has really helped me to navigate more of that uncertainty.
So, like in that note, right? So when you are going to these multi-day events, you said you did the five like FKTs of 350 miles, and then Moab, where you have to do multi-day events, right? So 3 4 days, 5 days. So when you're training for these longer distances, do you kind of mimic it, like how you are going to perform the race, or you just leave this thing directly for the race days?
Yeah, so it is a lot of preparation in terms of, for me at least, I was going out and doing a lot of 5 to 7 hour back to back days, and you're going quite slowly, but you are, hey, I'm getting out, time on feet, etc. Oftentimes with those races, you are carrying a heavier pack. So I was going out with my pack loaded as though I was in the race because 200s are a lot of upper body strength. And so that that was something I really factored in was okay. And my upper body was exhausted after Moab. So trying to make sure the weight, feeling, etc., was similar. Also, what am I going to eat out there? How is that going to look? I will say the one thing that I do not do, and I don't encourage my athletes to do, is sleep deprivation training. It just doesn't really pay off with the delay in recovery that you are going to have. So, say you're out there all night and then you get 2 hours of sleep, but you have to go to work the next day, or you have your kids or your family, etc., and then you go into the week really tired, not from just the training stimulus, because probably the training stimulus is really high as too. You're risking injury by adding on the sleep deprivation, but that's not to say that you shouldn't do, say, a really early morning run or a late evening run where you're getting an hour or two in the dark to test out your lighting systems. So it's I think it's very useful to get, or like UTMB is a 6 p.m. start. So I did a couple of workouts starting around 5 or 6 p.m., but I'd be done by 8 or 9 so you can get a pretty good night's sleep. So it's good to kind of simulate as much as still allows you to recover and perform throughout the rest of your training.
When you are leading up to the races, because Moab is its terrain, like it's much more different than when you do these technical courses like Hertz, for example. How do you train for this? Do you kind of mimic in that way as well? Because if you need a lot of words, do you go and prepare for it? And just like how we did with the multi-day events thing?
Absolutely. I try to be as terrain specific as I can. So, for example, Moab, much more runnable. I wasn't trying, I mean, yes, say runnable, there are still climbs, but I was trying to get on a lot of running. For Hurt, I was trying to get on as technical, steep terrain as I could, even mimicking, here the climbs are about like 20 minutes. They're about 900, 2,000 foot climbs, like 2 to 300 meters. So I was trying to find as many hills and descents that were kind of within that range. So I do quite early on try to find as specific a terrain as I can. And I'm definitely at an advantage having a van where I can be like, okay, I am gonna drive to bigger mountains for the weekend, or I'm gonna get to even flatter areas to mimic this. So I think that's so crucial. Also, to yeah, just spend a lot of time looking at the race profile, be like, okay, what's the biggest climb of the race? Is it 1,000 meters? Is it 3,000 meters? Is the rate, because a lot of people look at the total elevation gain and the mileage. It's like, but how is that distributed? Because that can be, I did a Lake Sonoma 55K, and it was, I think, like 2,500 meters, which is pretty good for a 50K, but it was all really runnable. It was all just like this, as opposed to, hey, there's a 2,000 meter climb and then a 500 meter climb. So that's going to be a very different type of training than something that is, hey, there's no real big climb, but there's a lot of runnable climbing.
Definitely. I think I learned that hard way because when I did my ultra, it was 1,000 meters for 56K. And then when I was training here, I didn't realize how much of climb that I needed to do in the actual race. And then there was 16 kilometers of descent, and I never trained
Ooh,
for 16-kilometer descent, and
yeah.
it kind of blew up my quads right away. And then the hills were so technical. I've never seen those kind of hills. And living in Berlin, I thought I knew hill, and I was ready to quit after 30K. I was like, I cannot do. I need to do 500-meter more. And I remember the episode with Jessie. She said, like, if you quit now, you can't go back. Quitting is forever. And that just kept in my head. And I just started making mini goals because my quads were not moving downhill, or it was all broken. So it was just like how you just said, like when we just look at the vert and the total elevation, and we never think like how much it is distributed. And I never paid attention to that too. And it was like a slap in the face when I went to the race, because it was the hardest thing I've ever done. And it was like, oh my god. Now I know if I need to do 2,000 meters, then I know that it's going to be double the hard than what I just did.
What's crazy too, though, I always think is that we think flat is easier, but sometimes flat is so much harder because you are like when you have climbing, you're climbing, you're using different muscles, you're descending, you're using different muscles, but flat is just the same thing over and over and over. So I think sometimes we see flatter races and go, oh, piece of cake. It's like, no, actually your running muscles are going to be dying, and we
Yeah,
have to make sure you're training running. Like, it kind of goes both ways. I think people get really worried about races that have a lot of climbing and descent. It's like, well, got to worry about if there's a lot of running in your race too.
definitely. I think it's a different muscle, like you said. And it's you're going to be running a lot, because when it is a climb, then you can walk.
Yeah, exactly.
When you look back at your career, right, you have been doing this for 10 years, and now you are competing against all the top people around the world. What is your drive? right now as when you started?
I feel like it's stronger in many ways. I have said that I am chasing the edge of my potential, and I don't feel that I've even come close to finding it, but I hope that as I come closer to finding it, it keeps moving farther away. And so I I just feel this incredible pull to keep that I am just starting to realize what I'm capable of doing, and that there's so much more out there. So excited about excited about like several races that I mean UTMB I'm obsessed with at this point. I feel as though it's such a complex race because there's so many parts of it that are very hard to get right, and I just want to keep trying to put as many puzzle pieces as I can together to get as perfect as a race as I can for myself. And that's a lot of how I felt about Hurt. Was it's like, okay, this is my third time trying. Let's see how close I can get to like my limit and or my potential. And I feel like I just have so many races that I want to do to see how close I can get to that. And so I'm just so excited to keep doing my best, and I just I feel like a beginner. Yeah, I feel like I I just am getting started. Yeah.
And in that note, what is next for you? What are the races that you're excited about?
Yeah, so I'm still putting that together a bit. I think well, Ultra Trail Cape Town, I'll definitely be heading there in November. And then next year, I mean, basically the second I crossed the finish line at UTMB, I was like, cool, so we're gonna focus on this. This is my number one goal. So UTMB is kind of the big one. And then I'm looking at Trans Gran Canaria as one option, then kind of trying to decide what the middle of the season looks like. I may I've always really wanted to do the UTMB Diagonal Defoe double. So I think I'm gonna put in for a Diagonal Defoe, and then if I finish UTMB and I'm like I'm good, I'm super tired, I'm not gonna do it. But if like there's kind of that spark because I like the whole Western States UTMB double people often do, but UTMB Diagonal Defoe is kind of like the mountain version of that, and that really appeals to me. So I think I may I may do that. So yeah, I
Lots of climbing.
lots of climbing. Yes, lots and lots of climbing. Yeah, and we're really working on races with evening starts, racing in the dark. So that will be a big focus for next year as well. But yeah, UTMB is, I really want to put my best foot forward there. So we're kind of focusing in on that.
As you have been running so much, right? So there has been podiums, sponsorship, and so many races, memories, traveling all over the world and stuff. If I ask you, what does a success look like? How does it look like for you?
I I think that it's the feeling of pride of knowing that you've done your best, that you cross the finish line, and of course there's always things you can do better, but it's like I put everything into that. I did my preparation to the best of my ability. I raced hard. I stayed in it. And also, I think it's a lot of being around the people that you love and having them be there with you on that journey. I mean, accomplishing these things alone, to be honest, just doesn't feel, it feels very hollow to me. But when I have my support team, like Hurt has been so special because I love that community. I mean, the basis of where I got into trail running, and they are always the first ones to congratulate me, to comfort me if things go badly throughout my career. And so winning hurt was for them in many ways. It had very little to do with me. I was just kind of like the the organism that made it happen, I suppose, the carrier. But I think that it's it's giving your best and also having people around you who are supporting you, and that you're there doing it for yourself but also for them too.
That was the interesting thing what you said earlier on was when we were talking about hurt, and you said you want women to break 24 hours. And as you know, ultra trail running is providently like male dominant, right? There are so many male male athletes who are running. Um, so what do you think it we should change to get more women involved? Because I had a podcast with Esther, and then she was pretty open about having more moms involved because there is not a lot of facilities. You know, moms have kids and stuff like that. So it would be so nice to have like a facility. For example, if kids can play there, so that moms can run and then somebody can look after it. So, in your opinion, what are the things that can be changed in the races that way women are more inclusive?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is that women are in many ways societally taught to be a bit more cautious. We're not as, hey, put your goals out there, like, oh, just go and do it. We're taught not to quite take as much of those risks. And we see that a lot in the mountaineering world, in the climbing world, where, well, climbing women are really strong. They're quite even. But I think that the risk aversion, and I think part of that is when a woman stands on a start line, that they're going to have probably done every single thing possible to prepare correctly for that race, or they won't stand on that start line. And so I think actually taking a little bit, and not to say you should go into things unprepared, but they won't even sign up for the race. And I think that, like, just continuing to encourage just that self-confidence, and I think that can come, like, we can help each other in that regard. And also the boldness that I think a lot of that is not as common for women to have, where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna try, and if I fail, that's okay. It's we can try it again. And so I think continuing to build that just as a culture of women in sport, I think that's going to help a lot as well. And that comes from feeling supported enough and safe enough to feel that you can jump off that edge.
We are here tonight, so somebody's listening to it, some mom, some women, and this is a chance to give them this message so that they can feel empowered to do this thing where everybody should do this and put their goals for put their be brave, be get out of their comfort zone. So what would be their message from you to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly it. I mean, I said at the beginning of Hurt, I ran past one of my good friends and I said, we're being brave today. And that meant going, like, I didn't know in many ways if I could keep that pace up. And I just went, I'm gonna give it my best shot. I don't know what's possible, but I'm gonna try. And I think that is what I want to say is be brave today. You can do it.
Right? So thank you for that. So hopefully somebody's gonna pick up the laces and do things and get out of the comfort zone and try this, because that's why I started this podcast was. And I don't think if I didn't talk to all the people in the podcast, then I would have done my ultra running too, because I would have just been doing a couple of marathons a year and then 17, 1800 miles of running, and then that's it, right? There's nothing more else. So I think the stories has given me or showed me the way that being uncomfortable and getting out of your comfort zone is okay, and we should test ourselves or at least challenge and see how much is our potential, like you were saying earlier on that you want to see what is your limit is. So I think this is why I did started this podcast, was to inspire other people so that somebody can just go like me and take that step where they are getting out of their comfort zone and diving into think head first.
Love it. Yeah. No, I think that I mean just the name Pushing Horizons is that's exactly it.
Yeah, step by step.
Yeah.
So
What was your 50K?
oh, I did here. It's in the Belgium border. It's called Monsau Mountain, and yeah,
Okay.
it was hard, but I finished
But
it,
you did
so
it.
I didn't
You
quit.
did
So
it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't. Yeah. And I
That's
was
awesome.
proud. At 55, I cried because being fat kid and being fat all my life, I was able to do it, and it was just like that feeling of joy that I'm capable of doing hard things, and I think that just felt so nice. We have three things left before we sign off, and this is one of the questions I ask to everybody, and it goes like this: why do you run?
It is my freedom. Yeah. It's when I feel the most free and also the most like myself.
Okay. So the next is the rapid fire. So I'll just ask you a bunch of random stupid questions, and you can just
Love it.
let me know what comes to your head first. Favorite race snack?
Sorry. Say again. There's a today's trash day. I can hear the trash.
Oh, I cannot hear it. I said
Okay,
favorite
good.
race snack.
Favorite race snack. These like waffles you can get over in France that have like sugar on top that's like crystallized sugar. It's really good.
That's best aid station food you have ever had.
Ooh. I had a waffle grilled cinnamon roll at Cocodona. That was great. That was really good.
That is interesting.
Very American.
Definitely. Hardest climb you have faced.
I think that has to go to Bridge of Heavens, which is the last climb of the Ura 100. It's like almost 3,000 meters in 5 miles. It's pretty rough. At mile like 90 something. Yeah.
I don't understand that. Why? Why at night, right?
Great question.
It's like to torture us, that's it's why would you do that right at the end?
Yeah.
One word one word that defines you as a runner.
Curious.
Music, podcast, or silence when you run.
Audiobook, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody had said audiobook so far, if I can remember correctly. So you're the first person who said audiobook. Most of them are like, I don't listen to anything. Some are like music, podcast, but yeah,
Yeah. Audiobooks. I listen to a lot of those during races and everything.
I used to do that.
It's great because
First
it
thing
gets you
you
out of your or go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead. Yes, I can cut this.
It gets you out of your own narrative sometimes where you're like telling yourself a story. You're like, I'm just gonna listen to someone else's.
And what type of stories do you listen to? Do you listen to something inspiring when you're going through, or just like murder mystery?
No, I can't listen to anything sad or I get way too emotional. I listen to Scott Jurick's two books a few times and then another of my kind of famous endurance adventures. So kind of like inspiring sports biographies is all I'll say.
That makes sense because you
You get
you
like
get more
excited too.
inspired.
You're like, he's
Yeah,
gonna do it. Yeah.
those I can imagine those listening to that and just getting pumped up while if you listen to him at 90 mile, then the next 5 mile to go, and that's so hard.
Yeah.
First thing you crave after you finish an ultra.
I would say general well, anything salty. So pizza's a pretty good bet. Yeah. And then eventually an acai bowl, but mostly like pizza.
That sounds good. So this is the final question, and it's for everybody too. And it goes like this: I would like you to finish this sentence for me. Running has changed my life because.
Of all the people I've met along the way.
Awesome. This was a very nice conversation to get to know you and then know a lot about you and then talk about you. This was, I think, we had some good stuff, and I think folks would be very inspired to learn about the journey, and then hopefully somebody can take up their shoes and get going.
Be brave out there. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun to chat. And I love that you are on a mission to inspire and get more people out there. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah, and that's I've been inspired, so I hope somebody listens to any of the stories. And there have been so many stories by just like me, regular folk, and like you, pros who run and then who goes and do these things. And we gotta get people moving, and that's the goal. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yes.
And yeah, I really appreciate your time and thank you so much. And I'll be looking at your race in Cape Town, so and see how we do on it.
Thanks so much. Yeah. I'm looking forward to giving my best on another day for sure.
Yes, let's go. I think it's gonna be a good one. So, and I've never seen anybody do races in South Africa, so this would be a good experience just to see how everything is. And it's so fascinating because there are so many races, and it's like amazing how we go and do things and explore, and that brings and generate curiosity to so many other people that want to do it. So, yeah, this will be a good experience.
Absolutely. And it's a chance to go to Cape Town and they have penguins. So I'm super excited.
Oh, that is
It'll be
so.
fun.
Yeah, that is usually penguins, and I was like, wow, Cape Town is South Africa, and it's like penguins there. I was like, what? It's like that is interesting. Now you said it.
I didn't know it either, but yeah, I was looking at like things to do and everything, and they were like, go see the penguins. It's like, well, I am sold.
That is the last thing I would have like expected. Like penguins in Cape Town, South Africa. It's like what? Okay, that sounds fun. I hope you have fun, and I'll keep an eye on your race. And thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have good rest of the day.
Thanks so much, Ash. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you,
All
and
right.
bye bye.
Bye. Bye.
Hey everyone, thank you for making it to the end of the podcast. I hope you really enjoyed this conversation. I'll see you again next time with another guest. Until then, happy running.